Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm Degidio, and we are back with another episode of the Jackson Podcast. Today, we have a very special episode. We are bringing in something a little bit different for 2025. We're going to be dropping a bunch of new episodes and a bunch of new behind the scenes that feature. Could you hear Steve? No.
It's low.
Steve can't hear us.
No, it went out. My headset totally went out.
Guys, technical team.
It's okay.
We're not starting off the year like this. It's not okay. That's Steve Astephen. So for those of you that want to know our special guest today, it's Steve Astephen, a legendary agent in action sports, an icon in the game. We got my co-host Twitch, my co-host Ryan Sheckler. We're combining moto, we're combining skate and surf. You guys will be seeing a little bit of everything this year on this channel. Give you guys a behind-the-scenes look at these industries, the icons behind it. And we're also going to be dropping a brand new show called Behind the Brand every Friday that features a little bit of everybody. We had Ryan Sheckler with Ellie Dela Cruz and Armin, the UFC fighter, #1 contender. We had Twitch in the Nosebleed Club at Supercross A1 and doing backflips. We also had Steve with us, Jeremy McGrath, Jet Lawrence, Hunter Lawrence. We had an agent. His name's Lucas. I forgot what agency he works for. He was with us as well. Never heard of him, huh? Never heard of him?
Nope.
Yeah, he was supposed to have a suite for us, but then he put us in an amazing VIP section, like 5,000 people. It was insane how big the party was. And then, so what we're trying to do is give you guys a behind-the-scenes look at everything going on in Jackson and behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to build this brand. So we're kicking it off with a family, no pun intended, episode.
Yeah, amen. Yeah.
Can I suggest something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Instead of behind the brand, because somebody's done that, what
Yeah.
about making the brand?
Do you guys see this when the agent speaks? Can we take notes?
No, but here's why. Making the brand, because everything behind the brand, people have done that and they've done BTS, but like what you've done, and we should give you your flowers for a second, because what you've done with Jackson and now Santos, you've created from zero nothing. So there's a lot of people that have gone into brands as CMOs or different directors or whatever and been like, oh, let's do a podcast or let's do a behind the scenes or of the brand. But you actually from scratch, you're making a brand. You're developing it and growing it from scratch. And you've done an incredible job with Jackson, and we know with Santos, my football players, all the way down to like my golfers, like the best golfer coming out of college next year. He came here and all he can do now is talk about you. Like
we got to
talk about anything else. Like
we got a good team.
My guys
like
came
this.
too, and the two agents. What'd you call them? Like Beavis and Butthead or something? I can't remember what you called them. But they're golf agents. Let them live, will you? But but I think the show should be called Making the Brand. That's it.
Yeah.
If you want to call it Behind the Brand, fine. But Making the Brand, because you truly make it from scratch. Like anything you do, and you put your heart and soul into it, and you're going to continue just like I did. Like when I started in 98 or whatever, because no one was doing it. There's so much hate that in this world and insecurities. Just know that people respect you, love you, and you just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to do some incredible stuff for the industry, and in an industry that we're lacking the support and the creativity that we used to have. Other than what Twitch has done and Ryan, no disrespect sitting in this room, especially with DPK and where it's come from and where it started. But you got to we got to give you your flowers for what you've done for everybody in the industry. And when I say industry, that's just sports, music, entertainment, whatever. I'm not talking action sports. Because there's not a football player that doesn't call me for your stuff.
I mean, you are a serial entrepreneur. I think we've known each other since we were 16 years old. We're the same age. And we've talked about it before, even on the podcast.
Are you guys the same age?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You've always been doing something, and I always knew that there was going to be a day where me and you got into business together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes getting into business with friends is a little crazy, and I've done it before. I know Steve's done it. I know you've done it, where it like just doesn't work out. But there's a different...
Has to be the right scenario.
Well, there's just a different vibe about Bear, because Bear wants to see you win. Yeah. That's the difference. Bear wants to see his friends win. He cares about the well-being of his friends and about us and this brand and taking Jackson from what it was, and then just like sprinkling in all of these athletes and influencers and getting it to a level where it's like everybody wears Jackson chains now.
Yeah, seriously.
And like Santo came out of a crazy scenario where me and Bear were just like in his office and we were talking, and I had just lost a shoe deal. And I was like, Bear, why don't we just do our own shoe company? And it started there. And then we kind of marinated on it for a couple weeks. And then Bear came back to me and he was like, what about this name? I was like, yeah, that name is sick because it means light. We're bringing light.
Yeah.
And then now to see what Santo has turned into is like, we haven't even dropped product yet.
Within the short amount of time that it's been around, it's like insane. Like people are always asking me, what's that logo? What's going on with this brand? Like, where's it going? Like everybody.
it's going to the moon.
Even with Jackson and Steve, I appreciate the flowers. You've been an icon. When I say that about a lot of people, but you truly are. I always look for you to advise. You're the first one to come to Nobu and meet me for dinner. When I had a little business plan, brand book identity, Sheckler said, yo, hit up Steve, see what Steve thinks. Took him to dinner about a year ago, and I showed him the whole game plan. He goes, just do you, we'll see where it's at. A year later to the date, we actually had dinner again, and the whole plan was there. But even for Jackson, my partner Josh, he brought me in 2020 and said, listen, I have this blank canvas, which he did an amazing job. And, we were at a small revenue, but it was good, healthy revenue. And I said, listen, I think we could 10X that revenue if we build a brand around this, a brand, something that's special, a culture and identity. And none of this would be possible without guys like Twitch, Sheckler, Steve himself leaning all the way in on me. Because so many brand owners get blocked by the agent because the agent doesn't have vision. Mm-hmm. So many brand owners get blocked by the athlete because the athlete just wants a check, doesn't want to be a part of the brand. Twitch, and he's spent, 20, 30 years building his brand, and he invested the whole thing with me off the break. So he put his entire career on the line for me, for the podcast, for the show, to be a Jackson athlete, to be a partner in Santo Studio. And to do that is the motivation I need. And so that's why we really wanted to do this show too, is to show everybody like yourself, Steve, like Sheckler, like Twitch, what it takes to be at your level and then maintain that level of success. Because we're going to dive into Steve's career here, but Steve, you've been doing it at such a high level for so long. Can you kind of off the break just explain how you know these guys?
So, I'll start with Twitch, because actually we go further back in a way than even Ryan in a way, because he was part of Metal Militia with Brian Deegan. And so I'm going to go way, way back. So when I originally launched the family in 1998, I got really lucky to get into freestyle motocross really early with Travis Pastrana and Carey Hart. Those are my first two clients in the space. And there was a thing called, it was LXD, and it was called Freestyle Championships, or what did they call it?
Yeah,
Something
I think it was Freestyle Championships.
Yeah, and LXD, Paul Tabley, was, through my partner at the time, Austin Hurst, was involved with this series, and it was starting to struggle. And I actually remember, Deegan reminded me of this not too long ago. It was probably a while ago now, because I'm thinking COVID was yesterday, so it was even before COVID. But we got to a point where I realized that in order for me to be blessed to work in this space, which I didn't grow up. I grew up in traditional sports in Boston, never knew what skateboarding was, snowboarding, any of those things. And I fell into it as I got into my teen years and moved to Vail, Colorado, and other things like that. But I was so embraced by the industry, the brands not so much, but the athletes, because what I was trying to show, and it's a lot of the passion, and hopefully, I always say that 30 years of doing this, 25, whatever it is learn from my mistakes more than my wins. And there are things that I did early on, Bear, that I gave too much. And it actually at times sacrificed my brand or my business because I just wanted to help everybody. But a story that goes to one of the events, they were running out of sponsorship and money. And actually the family was on the check.
I remember that.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So what I did is that the events were actually struggling for cash and the only way the athletes made money back then was the events and sponsorship, like prize money. There's no media deals, there's no TV deals, there's no league deals or team deals like there is in Supercross and motocross or football, baseball, whatever. So I said, look, I'll front the prize purse. And so it's funny that was when Twitch was back on the Metal Militia and doing those events. And that's when I first met. And, from day one, just the way he marketed himself. And I always look at it like him and Brian both. And I didn't represent either of them at the time. I never represented Brian. I got to have the privilege to work with Jeremy for some years, is that they just knew that they were a brand. And they treated it like, look, if we're not going to have these certain things, we're going to maximize the platform we're given, whether it be a small event, whether it be X Games, whether it be Gravity Games or the Freestyle Championships or Vans Triple Crown, we're going to maximize it. So, I used to like when people would be like, Deegan's crazy and all this sort of stuff. And even corporate America, I'd be like, he grew up like church going, supportive father, supportive family. But Brian was, and you see it now how he supports his family. But during that time, he knew he had to be like the opposite of Travis Pastrana.
Yeah, we all knew that.
He had to be like the bad boy, and he had to wear like spikes. Him and Twitch come out with these fucking shoulder pads.
We talked about that in our podcast.
I actually shouldn't swear. Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, you probably already talked about it. But that's where Jeremy, and then a few years went by. And I don't know how it all came up originally. Jeremy was I think you were represented by somebody else at the time. I'm not even sure.
I think it was Rich Swisher and Bobby Nichols and all those dudes.
Yeah. And we just kind of like started hanging out more, and it was, him and his wife, just great people. And I was like, yeah, let's work together. So I got a really good run with Twitch, and we had a lot of fun working together. And then Ryan, the story with Ryan, not to prolong this, because it's a great story. And actually his dad thought I was like a real jerk for a long time. So I knew Ryan a lot because Travis and Ryan were really close. And I can actually remember, like, because they were both on Sobe, that drink thing. So I would go to events with Travis, because back then I was like, Twitch knows this, like at outdoors, I was cleaning his fucking drawers, carrying his helmet. I did everything. It was like I was Travis's team manager.
He was stepdad, babysitter.
Yeah,
everything.
I was going everywhere with him. Soon as mom and dad let the reins go, it was like, it was on me. And so Travis
on you
and
and Malcolm.
Yeah, Malcolm. So Travis and I would like go to these events, and Ryan be at all these events, and I'm like, that kid's a phenom. He's sick. What he doesn't know, what his dad and Ryan didn't know at the time even, is I used to bet on Ryan, meaning to win, against my other athletes, because I'm like, the kid's gonna win. But I learned with Debbie and Robert, and it was a real blessing for me, because when I came in, there was no agents in the space. So I was kind of creating it as I went along, and trust me, I was making it up as I went along. I didn't have a lot of mentors from the space. And more importantly, I didn't realize that parents were everything to these athletes and how they got through the ranks. In most cases, some came from broken homes, but in most cases, mom and dad were involved in some way or another. And Debbie and I did not get along in the beginning. Did not. Robert was like, Robert, shirt off, shirt open, walking around the pits. Robert was the coolest guy ever.
He was so
construction worker. And Robert, he and I still talk today. And we had an anniversary when Travis ran the Daytona 500. I think it was 25-year anniversary of us working together, whatever it was, when I signed him when he was 16. And it was the first time since their divorce, Debbie and Robert had been in the same place. And then Cassie, who's been with me 11 years, but didn't know the whole back history, sat with Debbie and Robert, like hearing stories about me and them. And there was a time that Debbie called me up one day. I think I had been fired like 6 times by Debbie. And Robert always kept a shovel in the room. He's a construction guy. He goes, Steve, I don't know what you're doing. Like when I represented his son, is like, I don't get it. Like, because there was no agent. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'll just keep a shovel for you when you need a job. Meaning like, you're going to go out of business at some point, 99, 2000, 2001, whatever. But Debbie was the mall manager, and Debbie was everything. And again, I can say this about her and be honest about it, because we have the utmost respect for each other. If she reaches out, she needed laptops for her schools, and she's a teacher now, whatever she needs, I will be there for life. I owe that family everything, including Travis still being a client and a very important client of mine. But Debbie, one day after the 3rd or 4th fire, she literally, I think, picked up the phone. She goes, "You're the devil." And I was like, oh God. I was like, oh, she hates
me. We're talking about Travis Pastrana's mom.
Yeah. And I called up Debbie. I called up Travis. And Travis is like, just call my dad. Just don't freak out. Don't quit. Because this is going to be the time now that I quit. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I call Robert. And Robert's like, Steve, don't listen to her. You're not fired. You're not quitting. Give me another hour. And the rest is history from there. Obviously, it's been 16 years later, 17 years later. And the point being, she was just very protective, right? Here's this guy coming in and trying to get in the house and whatever else. And that's often... I think that the history of managers and agents, you don't let one bad apple ruin the bunch, right? But unfortunately, there was situations even beforehand that, Debbie and Robert had heard about agents because, their uncle played for the Denver Broncos. And there was like the old school mentality of like them doing this and this wrong and that wrong. And so Debbie was always just fearful. And there's no way that blood is always going to be thicker than water. So that was a really good lesson for me. Now back to the Ryan story of why I didn't go after Ryan as early as I thought I would. He had some relationships with like the CAAs of the world, because now all of a sudden, after I built it, other agents came in, IMG got into it, CAA got into it, some other boutiques of people that worked for me, and they went on to do their own thing. Octagon got into it. And Ryan was kind of dabbling in some management agent work, especially on the Hollywood side, because you had Nick Stein from CAA, who was like a Hollywood agent.
That's crazy. I forgot about that.
Yeah. But his mom, and Gretchen's different. She actually, like, if she was never Ryan's mom and came to me years in, I would have hired her. Like, so there's a big difference between like being a mom and a parent that gets involved and intersects and actually affects the career at a certain point. Because again, I think I have the respect of all the parents I've ever worked with, good or bad, fire or quit or whatever it may be. But Gretchen was different. And Randy at the time too was different in a way that they just had a bond that was just so much, it was just really special. And in a way from behind the scenes, I respected it. I just didn't want to intrude. So Ryan was just a young little kid, and I was doing another event that, you know, again, I learned why I don't want to be in the porta potty and dirt business. And it's called the Jeremy McGrath Invitational. So I didn't represent Jeremy, but I went to Jeremy. I said, let's try to change the sport. Let's do a thing. And he wanted to do this forever. So we put together an event, and now I had Wasserman money. So I'm like, yeah, let's buy dirt.
Was that the one at Home Depot Center?
Yeah, it was like 150 grand for the dirt.
I was 14.
It was rad.
Yeah,
it was a dope event.
It was a dope event. But again, sometimes too early, too soon, whatever.
Yeah.
So Jeremy's like, and I always respected Jeremy as the king of Supercross. Always. I mean, there's been great winners, but you want to talk about corporate?
He's the
before
king,
corporate
bro.
He's the king.
corporate.
There'll never
Jeremy's
be
the
another
king.
king
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Period. Period.
And so I went to Jeremy, even though we didn't represent him, and said, I want to do this event. And then we'll call it the Jeremy McGrath Invitational. You could create it different. It was the first, I think the first event with metal ramps in a Supercross race.
It was sick.
And again, we tried to be different. It is what it is.
That's dope.
Didn't make a lot of money. But anyway, I was coming out of the Home Depot Center, and I think, Ryan, you could take it from there. He
was
said, Mom, that's Steve Astephen,
Yeah.
which by the way, that's nobody. But
No, but I knew because of that backstory with Pastrana. I used to hang out with Pastrana all the time. I still very, very rarely get to hang out with him. Obviously, he's a dad and he's doing his own thing right now. But back then, dude. So I was 14. He would have been. I think he's 5 years older than me. He would come and stay at my house. Like he would stay at my house. He would take my dad's truck. We would go get McFlurries from McDonald's, and he would go do donuts in a parking lot, and then drive me back home and stay the night. And it was like he was like my friend, and I knew through Malcolm, and I knew that they had Steve Astephen. I just knew this Steve Astephen guy, and I did have management at the time, and I just didn't feel like it was working.
Yeah.
And that happens. It is what it is. No hard feelings. But fast forward to the Home Depot Center. We're driving up to park. Steve's walking probably to give somebody passes, and I told my mom, I'm like, that is Steve Astephen. I really want him to represent me. Can you go talk to him? And this was like the first moment.
This is why Mom's really a boss.
Yeah, this is why this was the first moment where I felt really nervous to do something on my own. And she's like, if you want him to represent you, you go ask him. And so I jumped out of the car, super nervous, like, Mr. Astephen, I'm Ryan. He's like, I know who you are. I was like, okay, will you represent me? And he said, sure. And then, it was like, if you promise me 10 years of hard work, I'll change your life.
That is awesome.
And I was 14 years old. And by the time I was 24, he had changed my life. Granted.
That just gave me chills.
Yeah.
Well, granted, dude, in the middle of that 10 years, my parents, it's very public knowledge, they split up. And it rocked me. And that's kind of where the introduction to, my alcohol and partying and the world had opened for me. The MTV show and just, getting invited to everything. And Steve was and is still very important. Steve is the only dude in my life in a business sense that made the tough calls to me and cried to me and told me he was worried about me. That's the reason today that I'm sober. There's a few other people for sure, but knowing the bond and knowing what me and Steve have been through in the last 21 years that we've been working together through ups and downs on both sides of our lives, it's deeper than an agent, relationship. It's family 100%, which is really cool why, the family kind of 2.0 started back up and, was able to go with him to that and then able to actually put some skin in the game. And like, he's always been looking out for me for my future. And it's not for me, it's for my family. So if I didn't have Steve in my life from when I was 14, if I didn't have my mom and my dad who are just business, they're all business, bachelor's, master's degrees, and I would be broke or I'd probably be dead because they wouldn't have cared about me. But sitting here today at 35 years old, I've saved well, I've invested well, and if I wanted to retire, I could, but I don't want to because they've taught me hard work. They've taught me that there's always something else going on, and it's like, and then, my relationship with Bear, it's just been like, he wants to see us all succeed too.
Yep.
So I'm like, all right, Bear, well, what can we do now? Now's the time. What can we do now? And this is just the beginning, dude. This is the second chapter of my life, and I've learned a lot, and I've had to sacrifice a lot, and had to make a lot of really bad decisions. But because of those bad decisions, I can now help somebody else hopefully avoid those.
Yeah. I feel like you have to go through the ups and downs, and mainly the downs, because that's how you learn. That's what teaches you, is making those mistakes. If you don't make those mistakes, you're never going to know what's right from wrong.
Yep.
Or if you could have done something. That's why when people are like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I can." I'm like, you don't know unless you try.
Yeah.
Like you have to be willing to take that risk with anything that you do.
Right.
It's first of all, I got to take a break for a second, because have we talked about his suit yet?
I wanted to wait because this was getting serious. I didn't want to be the icebreaker, but this is
I
crazy.
need a little icebreaker before I get emotional.
This
and
is
get
crazy
too
work.
into the depth.
I told him we were doing a business podcast with you. He goes, "I'm all business."
And I show up in a hoodie, but state country,
Hey,
got to support Danny.
The guy
Evans.
texted me at
Lynch,
7
but
a.m. He says, "I'm all business today."
Yeah, he is
Hits
all
me with an
business.
emoji like this. I mean, just stand up real quick and show the camera.
You got to show it. And I'll talk about, this is why when I signed him, it's funny. It's like
a good suit.
When I brought Jeremy on board and I was lucky enough to work with him, it's that different. Is there's transactional relationships, and then there's relationships when you see athletes, musicians, and whatever that I get blessed to work with. Especially the privilege I was given to do this is when you're the full package, and you're sitting with two of them right now, where it's like I could put Jeremy in a business meeting, I could put Jeremy in front of corporate America, and no matter the tattoos, the image. You could judge from the outside, but then once they met him, they're like, I really like that kid. And you can see it's the way he's raised his family that way. His wife is a fucking gem. And so, like, again, for all three of you, that's where the flowers are deserved, because like all three of you have made mistakes in life, and look where you've come from it. And I think it's like too many people in the world today, they still victimize themselves, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, I didn't grow up with by the way, you're looking at one, right? I used to use, he knows the excuse all the time. I'd be like, I didn't graduate high school. I lived in a car with my mom for 6 months. I grew up in the hood. I'd use it as an excuse. And all that was an insecurity. Mm-hmm. And when you stop victimizing yourself and you write your chapter, those are chapters somebody else written for you. You couldn't control growing up a certain way. You couldn't control like your surroundings, but the chapter that all three of you are writing now going forward. And again, like Baron, like Corey reaching out to me, it's like, you got to know here. And I mean this, like, and we're going to meet after this. I'm here for you for every mistake I made, starting businesses with athletes, musicians, myself, starting my own businesses when I didn't understand to be the dumbest one in the room, because there is no one that's going to outmarket you. There's no one that's going to be more passionate and creative for you. But as you know, the starting a DPK compared to where it is today is just your learnings, right? Of like, oh shit, I got to pay taxes on this. Or if I give away product, there's still a tax that goes with that. It's not free to be free. And the financial situation. So my hat's off to Ryan and Twitch, and as well as yourself, Bear. But for Twitch especially, where he brought a brand that even I struggled helping with when I tried to help him in the beginning, and he never gave up.
His DBK?
Yeah.
And you try to help him with that?
Yeah. So the very
had
beginning,
ownership in it for a little bit.
And again, like that's the difference too. Like even the ownership, when he said, I could have kept it. That's the other thing with a lot of like, I hear a lot of stuff about myself and about agents that it's such bullshit. Like we all like to give each other shit, but it's like when he came to me and like my opinion was at the time Wasserman grew so big is like, look, buddy, I appreciate in the beginning we did some of the legal, we got your operating agreement, we got all this stuff ready, and we made sure you didn't hang yourself.
The trademarks and stuff.
Yeah, but I don't know that we earned the equity that you gave us, and we gave him back all the equity.
Wow. Because I hit him up, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna like go full bore with this. Like, what do you guys want to do? And he's like, take it. I want to see you succeed. Like, go do your thing,
Let me
Ethica, same way. I gave all that equity.
Just to stay on that though for a second, Twitch, DBK is like one of the most authentic moto brands you can imagine. And you've been phenomenal at staying true to that. Most people would have sold out. Most people would have shot the gun.
Or just gave up. Remember, at one time he was losing, like he was investing everything he made through brands.
Yeah.
And his wife was all in, sacrificing things. But I think you could talk about it better than anybody of like things that you took even for your family in order to chase that dream of doing something that you knew you could make an industry change. Now, again, I did get back my equity, but I might want one of those chains when you sell stuff. So I need a chain or something. But
I think the best part for me figuring it out was I just wanted to put it all on my back, and I'm like, if I fail, it's on me. I can't blame someone else for the failure of my brand. So when I was like, all right, let's go all in, like my certain companies weren't paying me all the time. I'm like, what do I have to lose right now? Like they're not paying me what I deserve anyways. I'm like, I'm just going to start my own brand. And I figured, I'm like, I've been in this industry for so long. I'm like, I need something to show for it afterwards besides some medals hanging on my walls and some like money that I made. I'm like, that's cool and all, but like to me, like I want to build like something that's going to live on past me. That's going to be cool. And I feel like with my fan base, it's like they're pretty hardcore to like wherever I go, they go. Like if I'm posting about something, they're buying that, So.
Yeah, I'm the first one to support that comment.
And the longest thing, like, or the hardest thing for me is like, I wanted to make stuff that I wanted to wear where people were like, oh, that's not cool. I'm like, I didn't make this for you. Like I made it for me. And if you want to buy it, cool. And if you don't, I don't care. Like it's no sweat off my back. And for me, that's the funnest thing is just starting something from scratch and seeing what you can do with it and trying selling it to like your fans and your friends,
So Steve, at the time when you first met all these guys, obviously you were already kind of established when you met Ryan. Ryan always talks about you having like the Avengers of action sports at the time. You had the who's who roster.
He had everyone that wasn't with him.
He still does.
I think
And
at
I
one
know
time,
you still do.
I mean, like it's different now because we're
Action
so
sports just
diversified,
meant
which we
more
get
back
into.
then, I feel, in a way, for the way agents were working with competitions like
Well,
X
there
Games
was
and
in the
whatnot.
beginning, I had a real heyday, and I was just blessed to get the right guys and girls. But again, started in snow because that's the industry I came from. I was lucky enough to be in that industry on the marketing and brand side. But it's kind of funny when you say that of like who's. And I was doing the math at one point, and maybe I think you had a bronze that year or whatever else when I started to jump the shark. And then other than, again, these two here probably messed that up for me a little bit because he was winning at 13 freaking every contest he went to. But I think X Games, and I don't want to, I'd have to go back and look because I didn't bring my notes, but I think of all the events, I think I had 95% of the medals.
Yeah.
Literally like
That's
95% between Dave Mira, Ryan Nyquist, Bucky Lasek, Bob Burnquist, Danny Way, Kerry Hart, Mike Sinkmars, Clifford Adadante, Travis Pastrana. I mean, and the list kept going. I don't think I could lose like a podium anyway, not a gold, but like podium. And then that was the era of Mira too. Because remember, like Mira and Nyquist was doing 3 events. He was doing
winning
vert,
everything.
dirt, and street. And in vert, it wasn't his specialty, but he pulled off once in a while. But dirt and street, he was just on the podium with Dave every event. And then Mira went 5 years never losing gold medal, never losing street or vert.
Yep.
5 years in a row.
So gnarly.
Never lost.
Animal.
Did you start? Did Mira start with you when you were at Wasserman?
No, the family. So the original, all those guys are original family. So I started the family in 1998.
Got it.
And then I partnered with Casey. I met Casey in late 2002, and
The founder of Wasserman.
right, we kind of closed the deal in 2003. And I mean, that company now obviously different, but then I was the first agent ever at Wasserman. He had been in the consulting business a little bit. Casey's 2 years younger than me. So I came in as a partner. I didn't sell him the whole company at the beginning. So like I actually was a partner and retained equity. And maybe these two remember, but Ryan would, is the family actually, even when I was with Wasserman, we kept the name The Family for the first couple of years.
In that little office in Carlsbad.
But then what happened was, is Casey's chips, because he had the money. I never had the money to do what I wanted. I knew I wanted to go into golf. I knew I wanted to go into basketball and other sports, but I was going to use the lifestyle and the brand and the business that I built in action sports to expand in that, but I didn't have the money. So at the time, IMG and Octagon, a lot of them had now come into sport, and they were trying to acquire me. Omnicom was the closest, and then just randomly through Bobby Kodak, the CEO of Activision, and Jeff Schwartz, who funny enough is the CEO of Excel. That's how I met Casey. Those two guys called and said, hey man, don't sell yet. Go meet this kid, Casey Wasserman. And I say kid because he was 2 years younger than me, but he comes from a lot of money. And I say this because I love him to death. He literally was born on third base, almost rounding home. And so I said, all right, I'll meet him, whatever. I had no idea who he was. And he came in my office in Carlsbad, and my conference room was the kitchen. And so here comes this LA Beverly Hills guy, and they walk into my office, and he's like, hey, man. And he was really smart at the time. I mean, he still is, but he was so smart to look me in the eye and goes, if you sell 100% of your company to Omnicom IMG, I know who's talking to you. In 5 years, you're going to be done. You're going to burn out. You're not going to be an entrepreneur anymore. Come partner with me and grow something special. And I spent 19 years doing that. So the family, when I relaunched the family in June of 2019, I took the name back because we had always kept it trademarked. I knew someday I would want to do something with it. I didn't know what at the time. And so then I relaunched the family. So yeah, that was all pre-Wasserman Mira. I actually signed Ryan Nyquist first.
Wow.
Because God rest his soul. And now we just launched the Dave Mira Foundation, which I'm on the board. You know, Dave is maybe we'll touch on this. I think it is important to touch this because across all men, mental health is really important to me in life now. And Ryan was in the car the other day with a client of mine that I sent away to deal with some trauma, not rehab, not alcohol and drugs, which I've done that 6 or 7 times with different athletes. But this is more just childhood trauma, some other forms of addiction, that sort of stuff. And Ryan and I were driving out to the desert, and he's very close with this person too. So I felt comfortable, and it is what it is. But Dave, I didn't catch. And Dave committed suicide, and it's unfortunate. But he was just different. He was built different. And you got to remember, like him and Carrie, and I think Carrie talked on the podcast when we were the same age, basically. McGrath and I are 2 days apart, and our daughter and son were born 2 days apart, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And Jeremy and I are the same age. You were there, 40th birthday. We celebrated together in Cabo.
Yep.
So we're the same age. And so like when I started this, I was learning with them, right? So like I would be like, Mira was like, because Mira was the king of no. And that's how I learned the power of no and how much money. Like I remember bringing this, he had already had Slim Jim, and I brought it to a different level. But even Dodge, he'd be like, nah, Steve, I'm not doing it. I'm like, dude, it's Dodge trucks. Like we're bringing them in the industry, and they're going to pay you $500,000. He's like, yeah, but you got this other company now paying me $750. Like money was getting big. And I'm like, buddy, just da-da-da-da. And I remember the next event I went to, I was like, hey, I think if you hit that trick, whatever. He goes, listen, I'll pedal the bike, you do the deals.
Yeah, I love that, bro. I love that. That's my favorite Dave Mira quote.
He was a
ever.
different human. Like when he got
on the scary, bro.
He was scary. When he got on the ramp, Bear, everybody else was like second, third place.
If he didn't not
because
like
he just
you,
mentally, him and Sean Palmer,
he won.
I don't know if there was better.
He won walking into the event.
Yeah,
seriously, like
and
every single event I've ever seen him at.
If he did not like you, you knew it right away. If he did like
the amount of fights I was in with
you
that guy?
actually felt like you had a personal security, like Secret Service killer with
Remember
you
when
at
he
all
fight
points.
Deegan?
I remember
He'd fight
Gravity
anybody.
Games. Him and Deegan and like a bunch of the BMXers and a bunch of the moto dudes got in a fight on the escalator at Gravity Games. Like, dude, Providence, Rhode Island.
Dave fought other BMX guys. Jay Miron knocked on his door one night in the hotel in Connecticut.
Is crazy.
And kept knocking on the door. And Dave was trying to be like, look, dude, I don't want to do this. I want to do this. And it was like 2 a.m. He's still banging on the door. And finally Dave goes, all right, we're going to do it. Dave opened the door with fucking boxers, smashed a plate from room service on Miron's head, and just started beating the shit out of Jay and goes, I told you I didn't want to do this. And then goes back in his room, goes to bed.
Yeah.
Bro, he's a badass.
What about the gnarly fight against Deegan and Dave Mira?
I wasn't there. I just remember hearing about it the next day. And then Deegan, I think Deegan missed the event because he was in jail. And that's where he got the nickname Mini Bike. Like all the inmates in there kept calling him Mini Bike because they knew he was like the motocross dude that was there to like
those were different
win
days
the Gravity
back then,
Games.
boys
Like, yeah, like
But what was it with the BMX guys and like the moto guys?
It's security.
Jealousy.
We talking
Like, just
jealousy.
like this is my territory. You know what I mean? Like just stupid. Like
I mean,
nothing
but
that was ever
Dutour-
meaningful.
Dutour even got crazy in Orlando
that was a big one.
between BMX
And Feist was
skate.
caught in the middle because he liked everybody. Same with
Same.
Carrie Hart.
I was always cool with
Twitch.
everyone.
So there's certain guys on BMX and moto that were friends with each other.
what
Like
happened
Carrie
to
Hart,
Orlando?
I grew
loved
up riding
everybody.
BMX,
Yeah.
and that's where half my tricks came from. Like I was always stoked to go watch every event I went to. I was on the ramp or on the side watching the BMX events because that's just what I grew up doing. I loved it, you know.
Wait, what happened to
were
Orlando?
kids.
Orlando, just like after parties, just skate. It turned into skate versus BMX. You know?
Bear. This is like when
I
I,
don't
used
know.
to fight. I used
But
to
we
have to
always
fight for his
mopped
butt,
him
too.
up.
This was like, I'm talking head smashing on sidewalk. Like
Yeah,
these are
it was
full on
bad. It was-
fights.
I
They're not
probably
like,
started
They're
it.
not high school fights. Like hey,
Sheckler started it.
Oh, dude, you know how many fights he started? You know how many people I have had to in New York City?
Oh,
when he was
yeah.
a kid,
I
remember when
mean,
I went
let's
through
be
the wall?
careful.
Yeah. Hey,
Guys,
bring it on. New York City. Let's hear the stories.
It's not for a
careful.
podcast.
Yeah, let's be
But
careful.
listen, I do want to
The
ask you a
amount of
question.
fights this guy
I'm
started.
a changed man.
We all are. That's why we can talk about it now.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of majority of his fights was due to people being jealous of him.
Well, they
and what he
hated
had
him.
going
Security,
on.
man.
Exactly.
They
We talked about it
hated him.
100%. And,
Amen.
and it's just
But
because
I'm not
they're
gonna.
not
I
secure
never
with
was gonna
themselves.
back down, and so that was the thing. Like I did get beat up a lot, but I also was not going to take people talking crazy to me and just be like and cower. Like I never
Yeah.
cowered.
That's how I met him when we were younger. We were like 17, 18. We
I
were
just
at a
would
party
never
in
cower.
Laguna, and I'm like, wait, that's the kid from the show? And I'm like, and I go say hi, and I'm loud, obnoxious, very obnoxious, but I'm sober. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. And then he was so nice to me. And then we ran into each other in Vegas like 6 months later, and this guy had a black card. And I'm like, bro, I've seen that black card. I'm like, there's no way he has one of those. Back then, we didn't have iPhones and like, I had a sidekick.
Social
you
media.
couldn't even search things that fast.
No.
I'm like, dude, I think that black card means like he's like a billionaire. And I'm telling everybody. And then everybody.
There's
and then,
that B word
and then
everybody throws
he's like 18 or something. And I see all these bottles coming at excess. And I'm like, he is not paying for everything. He's not even old
He ain't
enough
even
to be
21.
And then he has a
Hey,
black card.
you weren't old enough to be there.
I know. But then we became
We just knew
friends.
people that knew people.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, and then we became friends, and I was like, oh, this guy's so nice. But I remember going to parties and people being like, oh, that's Sheckler. And I'm like, what are you hating on? The kids, they were hating on the fact that he had all the chicks and
He
he
has
had
a
all
TV
the,
show.
all the
He has
fame and all the
this,
money. But he was still humble to the people he liked.
I don't think he's ever changed. Like, since I've known him since
Same.
he was like 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
always been the same dude.
Yeah.
I just wanted to win. So it's like no matter what was happening outside of skateboarding, I always wanted to win. And so like I could do these extracurricular, go to the parties, go on these trips and do all that stuff. But when it came down to competing, I was there for game time,
Yeah.
no matter what, through injury. And I was prepared to get severely injured every single contest just to try to win. And I did a lot of times get
That's called heart.
pretty hurt. I mean, but that's why me and you are friends. And that's why we became friends very early on in my career for sure. Because I loved motocross and I loved freestyle. And it was like, these guys had the energy that I want, but I couldn't do what they were doing. So
And I love the passion that he had, just seeing him as a little kid, just always on like Fuel TV and like I would just see him at like the Etney skate park or like anywhere just shredding. And I'm like, this kid doesn't stop. Like,
and we rode for Etnies together and it was
Yeah.
like, it was cool.
One thing I want to ask you guys is why back in the day was in X Games, was it always like skate and moto versus BMX? Why was there so much controversy at X Games between the sports, even though you guys
I
were
don't
all
think
in
it was
X Games?
always. It was just certain people who didn't
Yeah,
like each
certain
other,
people.
just cockiness and like I'm better than, you know what I mean? Just like,
But why don't we see this type of like intensity and rivalry in today's X Games?
Well, because it's not all together right now.
yeah. And
It's not-
honestly, for me looking at it, like it sucks to say, but to me, like X Games is dead. Like you don't have all the good moto events. You don't have all the good skate events. It's like,
It's going to make a resurgence though.
it doesn't have like the wow factor that it used to have. Like
There's no
everyone
more
sees
rock
this shit on
stars.
social media now.
I mean, there is some, but like when you think about it, I think at one point, let's go back to the medals and everything else for me. And again, probably around 2000, I want to say 15 or whatever, I started working in golf and basketball with Klay Thompson and football and all that sort of stuff. But this is my roots and it's what made me successful in everything else because the traditional, why I don't do baseball, still transactional. There are guys, Mike Piazza comes back, okay, I'm in. But like my specialty always across what we do is how do you service better than anybody is the non-transactional approach. And most traditional football, basketball, golf agents are transactional.
Yep.
And that's why my early years working with like someone like Ricky Fowler is I knew he would win eventually, but even prior to winning, he was the most marketable guy in golf. Period. End of
100%.
conversation.
Still is
so
to this
I
day,
knew
dude.
I knew I could do so many things with him. Klay Thompson, I knew him through Ryan. And I knew him as an individual when he hung out with his friends. And I'm like, if I can get that little part of that introvert into the corporate world and let them show
Let
who
them
he
see
is
who he really
and
is.
see who he is. And that's where I was lucky to take when Clay left his agent, when he left the agent he was with, no need to talk crap, and came over to us. He had an agent in Wasserman, but I did everything off court. So like his corporate deals, social media, we built a foundation. We, my team and I, and that was mostly a team made up from this world. And so to back up to your question, back when these guys were starting out in that, they were the lifestyle. Like NBA now is a fashion show. They were the fashion show. Everybody wanted to dress like action sports athletes. Action sports athletes, including snowboarders in my day, they were rock stars. Rock stars. You
Yeah.
couldn't get off a plane in Europe or Japan and Jim Rippey and Kevin Jones would be mugged by 80,000 people were coming to Austria to watch a big air event in a stadium. But they were rock stars. You have better snowboarders now. Now, again, there's a select few. You have better skateboarders now. No disrespect. I mean, talent is crazy, but it's far and few between that you have the marketability that these guys had in the 90s and the early 2000s.
There's no stories.
Yeah,
Is
some
that
people
because
just
traditional
have
media?
it, and some people just don't.
It's just
you know what I
different.
mean. Like you could go win everything, but if you're not a personality or a marketable person, like I don't care how much stuff you win, you're not going to sell a product.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and there's no nostalgia like growing up.
Well,
Twitch.
if I can't relate to you,
Yeah,
if
you're-
I
Exactly.
can't relate, and you're like, yeah, I'm 20 years into this game. I've never broke a bone. I've never crossed a line. I don't step on the cracks on the sidewalk. I'm like, cool, you win. I have that in common with you, but I don't have anything in common
Yeah.
with your life.
seriously, that's how it is. Like when I was a
such
little
a good
kid
way
and
to
I
put
liked
it.
someone, I was like, when I was watching like videos of McGrath and partying on the boat, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like I want to do that. Like I like that. You know what I mean? Like just things that you see as a little kid. Like I feel like transition later on in life to where like that's what makes you.
I mean, even as
100%.
far as like, bro, so injuries, so seeing, being out on the floor, we talked about it before, being on the floor, watching you break both your ankles was like so crazy to me. And everybody was like tripping. And I was just like, whoa, like he's going to be okay. But that was gnarly. Like I heard you break your ankles.
Yeah.
It was like gnarly. And then how we relate and how I relate with other people too, like as weird as it sounds, it's like tattoos, the tattoo world.
Yeah.
Like if I see someone with a huge rib piece, I'm like, I know exactly what you went through.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I'm like, all right, respect, like it's just
But
weird.
I think it's
weird.
coming back around. Like Ryan said, there might be a resurgence. I'm seeing the requests again. There's, Cordano, who you introduced me to. In my opinion, that kid's like Bo Jackson.
Yeah. Cordano's the next level.
He played football. He played basketball. He looks like a freak athlete. And now that's accepted in skate to be an athlete. And then if he wins, that kid could be Kobe Bryant type level.
And he will.
And he's
will.
young. He's 20 years old.
Yeah.
But there are special things. Like, someone said to me the other day is like, you're going to sign this, like with everything you have going on, Steve, now you're, music focused and sports focused, whatever. And Ryan talked to this kid about signing with us. And the kid said, I want to sign with you. I don't think I've signed someone in action sports in 10 years.
Well,
I think
seriously.
it's been maybe a decade since I signed.
Well, 'cause I
somebody.
haven't-
But
I
he's
haven't
special.
brought anyone to
Yeah.
you.
No, but like I have Corbin Harris, who's great in the action sports space. I have Casey Feitler now. I have Beeks. I got TK, Terry Kennedy. I got a team. Like I love being surrounded by this team that I have and that we've built that really cares about the athlete and services the athlete. And it's still hard. Look, I want my agents, I'm not going to let them hang themselves, my managers and agents, but I see it. It's just hard, right? Like, the thing that I'm blessed with is you're not going to outwork me. Period. End of conversation.
Yep.
And I know that sounds egotistical. Not Lucas. Not anybody in this industry is going to.
It's not egotistical.
Period.
It's facts.
End of conversation.
It's facts.
I don't know. Like I
facts.
preach all the time now because of some mistakes early in my life and child raising, whatever, wife, that sort of stuff. But I don't do work-life balance. I think it's bullshit.
I'm with you on that.
I work to give people around me balance and a life, including my son, my family, my friends, the things that I'm able to give back to now, launching the family foundation, launching that. But I don't work-life balance. No, I preach it to everybody that works with me, like, hey, man, make sure you go. But for me, it's work. There's no work-life balance. It's just
But it
work.
always comes full circle.
I'm blessed,
And
yeah,
it will
and I'm
always
passionate.
come full circle. back.
It's what
It
you
always
do and
does.
it's what you're good at. So
Well,
it's hard
when
not to
I
want to
went
do it
and
all
did
the
this,
time.
if I didn't have the support, I look at other agents that have left and started their own thing, or agencies or managers or whatever. It's like that ladder is really nice coming up. And
But
for
the
all the
downfall-
shit talking over the years, even about me, but that different things happen, I knew the support I got left that I knew that I sleep really good at night. I sleep really good at night. I know I've always serviced my clients. I know I've always loved my clients more than sometimes myself, which is a problem. But as these sports come back around, the nice thing about it is like, it's funny, like Ryan and Travis Pastrana have called several football players for me who grew up loving action sports. And the reason they're signing with us is because Ryan and Travis have called them. So there's a mutual admiration society between it. And then it's like the moment country music's having right now. Like for us, country music is a huge focus. We're signing the future and female and male artists, and I believe in them so much. But now it's so unique because I could take everything I learned from Twitch and Ryan and these other action sports and bring it into country music.
Yeah.
Like marketability and early on what their social and digital and creative looks like. And it's the same thing that we've done. It's like, I'm getting credit like the hot prom date in music now and the stuff I've been lucky to do with MGK. It's like, we did this in skate in the 90s or whatever. It's like,
you're just doing
it's
it
just
all over again
it's
with
it's
somebody
like,
else.
it's like when Ken Block did Gymkhana. I'm like, it's a skate video. We just put cars in it. Like,
It's literally a street skating
it's a
video,
skate
and it's
video.
so
It is,
sick.
right?
That's why.
And
That's
where
why it
Ken
resonates.
Ken came from skateboarding.
Yeah, that's
And
why
when
it
he became a
resonates.
race
It's
car
honestly not
driver, God
rocket
rest his
science.
soul. He said, I'm going to take everything in skate I learned and snowboarding and bring it into
I'm gonna make the
motorsports.
street part.
Yeah.
One thing I want to jump into, Steve and Checks,
Look
is
at how cute his face is.
Why is that? What is that bottom one?
I don't know, but
Get
one of
that
the-
off the screen, bro.
one of the
That
most
looks
iconic
crazy.
shows in the history of action sports is Life of Ryan. I feel like this transcended culture. It
Dude.
definitely made something that was different. Let me just
This wasn't
break
on
this
the
down.
docket, bro.
Don't worry.
This wasn't.
The
this
Life of
wasn't-
Ryan, I felt.
Wait.
brought an
Before you
action
do that,
sports
see
character
the photo
to
on the
real
bottom
life.
right?
Yeah.
Remember I posted Jet's birthday the other day?
Yeah.
How crazy. That haircut's back.
It is.
Every 16, 17-year-old
It's
boy
full circle.
is bringing the Ryan hair back.
So,
We should have
but-
trademarked that.
We started that.
yeah, I want to talk about this. Explain to me how this show came about and the impact this had on culture. I mean, Us Weekly and OK Magazine, there was a TikTok I sent to Ryan a few weeks back. They had Ryan as one of the most popular kids of the 2000s. He was like top 3 most popular.
He was on the
searched kid.
cover of every teen magazine.
Yeah, so I want to talk about this Life of Ryan show because good or bad, it definitely was iconic. Good or bad, it definitely shifted the culture and what skating was.
It was
And
huge.
Definitely made
Sold
you a
tickets
mainstream.
to events.
Yeah,
Huge
seriously.
tour.
So
That's
how did
that's
this
the main
come
thing.
about?
I don't think it never changed skate culture. It was never designed to change skate culture. My whole deal with the show was we are having so much fun at this point in our lives. It should be documented. It's not good enough just to be documented and put nowhere. So we can do a TV show. And if some kid somewhere in the world, in America, watches this show and thinks skateboarding looks interesting and goes and buys a board, then my job was done. It turned out to be really kind of gnarly, and there was lots of drama and lots of just a lot. You know, it was a lot. I told you before, dude, like I'll watch an episode nowadays and it's like it's really hard for me to watch because I really feel I've changed so much just in the ego and my demeanor and how I speak and the things that matter to me. That what mattered to me when I was 17 does not matter to me right now at all. But that show, like Steve was just saying, it sold out Dew Tour arenas. Like it sold out stadiums because they wanted to come. There was signs up everywhere.
It helped action
The
sports.
amount of
Bro.
product we sold, holy cow. We had SWAT shut down Pac Sun in
Yeah.
Huntington or Long Beach. It was Long Beach.
It
I
was
think.
Long Beach, bro. And there was
SWAT
like
showed up.
7,000 people that would show up to an hour-long autograph signing and then
Crazy.
fight in the
Couldn't
parking
walk through
lot.
walls.
But talk to me how you were approached by MTV or how this even came about. Because at the time,
It was
no
Rob
skater,
Dyrdek.
action sports guy
it
had
was
a show like
it
this.
was Rob Dyrdek, dude. Rob Dyrdek had
Jason
Rob.
Carbone.
Yeah, but Rob had Robin Big, and I was hanging out with Rob a lot. I was staying with him in LA, doing whatever we wanted to do because he was famous, and he had that shirt that said B-list celebrity, and he like ran it really hard. And he's like, you need to have an MTV show as well, and that's kind of where the idea came from. And then Steve went out and we found Jason Carbone.
Did you put together the pitch deck for the show?
No. That was actually even like
This thing sold itself.
part
This
of
is literally
when
what we
I
were
started
doing.
to know him. And it's like, it was MTV and Jason Carbone, great guy. I'll tell you what though, it talk about things you don't want to go back to. I actually, somehow it popped up during not too long ago, maybe the holiday break or whatever. And I was watching episodes. I was like, what was I wearing? Remember those Hart and Huntington?
Oh,
tees?
yeah.
I looked like an Affliction commercial. My hair, diamond earrings. I'm like, what was I thinking? But, this is me and him arguing about money. I think in one of those things.
We're always arguing about money.
But
I'm
the
buying
show,
this. No, you're not.
From a positive
Always.
perspective, look, even Plan B at the time, a core skate brand, was selling more T-shirts than they were decks because every girl and teenage boy wanted to buy the product. And I remember I was reading an article when Ryan and I went down to South America. In South America, he was bigger than Brad Pitt, straight up. It was like he couldn't leave a hotel room. He couldn't get off a plane. In South America, he was the Brad Pitt, younger, good-looking, heartthrob craziness. And it really gave exposure to a lot of the lifestyle and the sports. And it helped other sports from that. So, and that was a time of those kind of shows, you know what I mean? And it didn't hurt that he was a good-looking athlete.
It was a perfect storm, dude. And then, like going back to the Plan B thing, we had the idea because we knew how many female followers, or it wasn't even followers at the time. There was no social media.
Fans.
People were actually watching this show after the hills on a Friday night at 10:30, and we were
time.
getting 2.4, almost 3.4 ratings. So there's like 3 million people tuned in every single time. But with Plan B, we decided to make everything pink. It's like, I'm gonna make all my boards pink.
Screw it.
Bro,
Let's
we were
try it.
selling 30,000 boards a month, which is like unheard of.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's unheard of.
And they're just getting them and just hanging them in the room or just having them
Or they're just everywhere. I saw them everywhere.
yeah.
Twitch, back then when that show came out, I mean, you were at an all-time high. Action sports industry was going crazy. What was your first opinion on that? Because you knew Ryan on a personal level.
I always liked it. I seriously would sit at home and watch it at night. You know what I mean? Like I think I had one kid at the time when that show came out, but she wasn't old enough to watch it. But like me and my wife Suze would watch it. I always liked Ryan. I've always been a fan. Like I've always liked his work ethic. So anything he ever did, I always backed and liked, you know?
I want to switch gears for a second, and we have the Twitch and Pastrana battle for gold. Steve, you were at this event, correct? This was in LA, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the time, Twitch, Pastrana is a huge name. You're a massive
Huge.
name.
He was winning everything. I actually, this is like right when I started doing.
Oh my god, the bar spin bike,
Yeah.
dude.
This is the first event that I went to that I won that like I knew I was going to win. Like I never had that confidence before. Like I came off the Tony Hawk tour, Boom Boom Huck Jam tour. And I remember
Training every day. Like,
yeah.
just
every day.
doing event after event.
And I remember Pastrana, Nate Adams, Kenny Bartram, they all tried to get the big dirt hit taken out. They're like, no one's going to flip that thing. Like we should take this out and use this dirt for a better landing. And me being me, I was like, fuck you. I'm flipping this thing. Like Ryan said, I'm down to eat shit. I don't care. Like I'm gonna win. If I'm not gonna win, I'm gonna crash, and I'm gonna crash really freaking hard trying. And that was the very first event that I won against Pastrana and Nate when they were in their prime, winning everything. So for me, that was like the biggest confidence booster ever.
You were Sobe too, huh?
Yeah.
It's not working.
And kicker.
Yep.
So at the
Are
time.
you still kicker?
Nah. No one now.
No, I don't think anybody is. At the time, Steve, one thing I want to ask you from a management side, you see all these guys running around, and we started to see like him. He had the Echo logo on, and, you know, Sheckler has a show. It seemed like action sports was becoming mainstream. The brands all wanted a piece of it, and the action sports brands weren't maybe able to keep up with the budgets. Is that where you feel action sports kind of splintered in a way where the core action sports brands couldn't really support the guys at the highest level anymore?
No, I don't think that's
No.
it, because here's what happened with I was actually playing golf with two surfers yesterday. One we represent, one that my buddy Blair Marlin represents, and they were asking my opinion, what's going on, and I was like, well, I'm blessed that a lot of people give me credit, and I will say that a lot of the athletes, when I met them, even like a Dave Mayer who was already successful, maybe his deal was 50 grand, and then we went into 7-figure deals. But you're only as good as the market. Mm-hmm. And that's why like everyone's like, oh, go to this agent, go to this agent. And even my young agents and managers, I tell them right now, they're like, will you go in and do it? It's like, no, if there's no competition, you're not going to get that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Dane Reynolds is a good example. He was a surfer that at the time it was a perfect storm. And the story goes like this is Quicksilver got word. I was driving up to Van Nuys and meeting with him and his mom in a cafeteria. And they said, Quicksilver sent us an offer. And it was like $100 grand. Mm-hmm. And I got there. They had already faxed him an offer for double because they had said, we're going to meet with Steve Astephen. So that was kind of fun for me because I'm like, all right, that has nothing to do with competition. It's public because it went public, whatever else. A few years later, I did a deal for Dane Reynolds for $3.5 million a year. Wow. It was the largest deal ever done for 5 years in surf.
Wow.
And everybody's like, oh, he killed it. He killed it. I didn't kill it. Is Nike was calling saying, I'll back up the truck for this kid. And so wasn't Billabong. So wasn't Ruka. There wasn't a brand in the industry that didn't want Dane Reynolds at the time. It was like Pied Piper. Whether he went to a contest or not, every kid wanted to be Dane Reynolds. So I knew I could keep pushing the envelope up and match and match and match and match. And I built a reputation for that because another agent in the industry, Mark Irwin, who I represent, who I liked a lot, represented Sean White, Chloe, Ryan Dungy, who I love Ryan and I love what he did with his career. Mark had called me when I did Bruce Irons' Oakley deal. And he called me and he goes, you don't have to break confidentiality, but I assume I should go renegotiate Sean White. And I go, yes, you should, because of the deal I did with Oakley with Bruce. How did I get that deal? Bruce, everybody wanted Bruce. He just never had representation before me, so they took advantage of him. I mean, his Red Bull deal went from like $5 to like, I'm talking a lot more money, like 10 times. But it's because everybody wanted Bruce, Monster, whatever. The problem with the industry right now is 2 or 3 people own it. Mm. There's no competition. Billabong doesn't hate Quicksilver anymore. They're owned by the same people. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to... And to me, the industry, if it had unionized earlier or if we had more... I would say function of league or whatever, because a lot of it to me, and again, I'm not going to get into legal and throw people under the bus, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit of inside trading. Mm. And Twitch knows it's a much bigger sport than action sports. I don't ever call supercross, motocross action sports.
No.
When guys are making the kind of money they're making.
Yeah.
And I remember one year there's a manufacturer that called me and said, I just called the other manufacturers bidding and we're not going to do that. And I said, well, you might want to withdraw that. And they said, why? I said, because that's illegal. you cannot be calling your competitor. This is a confidential conversation. I am a registered agent. You can't be doing that. And again, it got into competition. A lot of money back then in the sport, even in that sport, was why Yamaha hated Kawasaki.
Yeah.
Kawasaki hated Honda. Honda hated, and there was enough money, and they battled. It was the same in the surf and skate industry. If Etnies didn't pay what I wanted from Ryan back then, I could just go to 4 other shoe brands and they'd be like, yeah, okay,
No
bidding
problem.
more, let's go. So the issue with the industry, because of during the hard times, some of the leadership in action sports never surrounded themselves. I tell people all day long with the family, I'm capable to get it to a certain level. I am not the CEO. My title is available at the family in the next couple of years because I can't bring it to 700 million, 800 million, $1 billion, but I can't go to that level. It's part of why I left Wall Street. Like, I'm not capable, but I know that. That insecurity is gone. We call it founder syndrome.
Yep.
Right? Yep. I'm mentoring another business right now that has a celebrity owner, really good CEO right now. And I told him, buddy, you're going to be good to 50 million. The difference between a brand at 50 million to 300 million is a whole other level. And in the surf industry, and you look at Paul Naday coming back into the industry and buying Ruka, the way he ran Billabong back in the day, and I respect the hell out of what he's done in the industry, but the reality is he never surrounded himself early enough with people that could have sustained that brand and allowed it to become a Nike-owned brand, whatever else, because of ego. He hated Target. He hated things that would build the industry and grow the industry. And now you got ABG, which, funny enough, Jamie Salters, he bought the company. He's the reason I became an agent. He bought Lamar, quit the next day. He ruined the snowboard industry. This is my brother. He knows I'm close with Jamie. I've met his kids and everything.
Jamie owns like every brand possible.
Yeah.
By the way,
but back then he was like
he
was like into action sports. Like he would buy snowboard brands and gray market them and bring them to mainstream. And I used to hate him. He's
got a unique licensing model.
Jamie's buying Lamar. I'm out.
Yeah.
And today we do a ton of business together. Yeah. But I'm not hating on it. The industry, it's not his fault he got a great deal on all these brands. Mm-hmm. It's the industry that allowed a consolidation where there's no more competition within.
Mm-hmm.
So where do athletes go, in your opinion? So you see what's going on with brands like that. Say, for example, Ruka being pulled away and now sold to another guy in the surf industry, the skate industry, not available for shoe brands. Sheckler has to start his own shoe brand. Twitch starts his own shoe brand. They're both partners in Santo Studio. They're both faces of Jackson. They have their own eyewear and watch coming out. Like, where does the future of the athlete go then with brands if it isn't the way it used to be? How does an agent like yourself?
Well, the athletes, the reason this happens is egos and insecurities. Mm-hmm. To me, competition breeds success. I became more relevant when there's more agents. Mm-hmm. When it was me by myself, it was like people were like, what's this guy doing? Like, what's this going? What's this going to do? All we have to do is support the industry. The difference between to me now, the nice thing about these guys starting brands is they can go to mainstream sports also. So to me now, the future is taking, for me in the future, we call him Coronado, and Emeka Buka, Jeremiah Smith, Jeremy, whatever, next basketball player, and creating these super teams. Mm-hmm. And that way, corporate America starts to get, and it's what you're doing, right? Think about how diversified you are.
Yeah.
So you're no longer relying on one. It's funny, back in the day, so many of the golfers and football players and basketball players wore Volcom, Quicksilver, and Billabong, but Volcom, Quicksilver, and Billabong hated on it.
Yeah, they wanted nothing to do with it.
They wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
So crazy.
And they could have, that's the great thing today.
Hey, also,
instead
of riding in the snow.
It was the scariest thing ever.
Hold on. Yeah. Hey, wait, Steve, I'm going to let you finish this and then Sheckler, great point.
I'm just watching.
Go ahead,
I'm
Steve.
watching.
Wait, finish that last point and then I'm going to Sheckler.
No. But I look, in all, I think entrepreneur spirit's coming back.
Yeah.
I think the athletes that made good money in action sports and basketball, football, baseball, whatever it may be, will start to bring that back.
Yeah.
And then that competition, because here's the thing that will happen. ABG brands, Blue Star brand, all these consolidation companies, if they have more competition and they really, and the consumer starts to see that again, mm-hmm. then they're all going to raise the thing. And that's my point back to brand A, B, and C. Got to stop hating on each other when they're startups and giving each other flowers and supporting it and just try to outbeat each other.
No, and before we move on to this, because Sheckler found an amazing piece of vintage archive footage right now, Twitch doing some massive jumps in snow. I do want to say that one of the straight visions off the break, and these guys know it, you know it yourself, was taking, Jackson Podcast as a media company now, and Jackson as the #1 men's jewelry brand and watch brand, Santo Studio with Sheckler and Twitch and P-Rod and Nyjah, and uniting those cultures with MLB, with NBA, with golf, and doing it at the most organic, authentic level. That's why we brought a massive crew to Supercross, to A1. We brought Ellie De La Cruz, one of the fastest rising superstars in baseball, to go sit in the nosebleed section, courtesy of the boys. So that way we can actually enjoy the event together. And he's a part of the company and a part of the brand as well. So when you build that authentic culture and it's united on a forefront, people can see it visibly. I think that whole old guard mentality of like, oh, he's not a moto guy, he's not a skate guy, kind of gets thrown out the window.
Well, and also, you're right. But also with a company like Santo, and I don't want to tell too many of the secrets why this thing is working, but there's a reason why we're able to get all of these insane athletes who have big deals and really gnarly sponsorships because of the way we've structured this company.
Just look at the crew.
Yeah.
It's like,
look at who's representing what inside of Santo, and that's how we're able to do this, but because we're in all these different categories, that doesn't mean we can't all be together and look like, hey, what are these guys doing? Yeah. This is crazy.
I mean, think about Jackson. Jackson became
like
the #1 selling men's chain brand. We not only developed the best product, we not only went to Italy to create the best solid silver chains and real gold and, just the link spacing and the way we did our watch and the design, but we did it with you, just like everything else. It's community led. It's culture based.
Community and mentorship's important though too.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing is no individual by himself can help change and help motivate and help move. So there's two categories that I see this, what you're talking about, that makes sense is guys like, I'm blessed to have him in my corner now, a Ken Roxon and Adam Sansarillo. Adam Sansarillo is the most recent where, and again, this is all love, but he had an agent prior to me. And he had an agent that was a good agent, but he was transactional. And when I inherited Adam, he was basically broke because parents, and again, this isn't because they were unethical, whatever else. They don't know any better. No one's there telling them for the long term, this is the right thing to do. Go ahead and put yourself on salary because mom and dad, you do a function until a certain point. Mom is doing everything managerial role. Dad, you're like the practice bike mechanic, whatever. But the money can't just flow. Mm-hmm. There's got to be structure to it. Adam came to me. He retired this year now with plenty of money to retire. But God, if I had him when he
started making money,
he'd have 50 million bucks. I mean, it'd be stupid. Thank God I got Roxon at that time, right? Right when there was an agent in Europe, there was some shit that I didn't quite understand. I just said, just get rid of it. Just let's start from scratch. Mom and dad, they're on salary. Let's just figure this out. So it goes for this. More of the athletes that have gone through these brand changes and these changes have to be more vocal to share their story. Because I'm still dealing with today, and this includes agents. I'll say this internally with my agents. You and I talked about it, right? I have agents still that think they're surf team managers, skate team managers, motocross, and I love, this is my family. I can make a lot more money working out of my garage right now with a few clients. I love what I'm building. I am so blessed to be doing it as long as I have to be able to do it. And I will give up everything for my team. But there's times when we got to stop looking at it as, oh, the industry, my bro, this bro, because that affects their livelihood long term. It affects the brands prospering past the industry.
Yep.
Can you imagine, like when Viore came in, now it's valued at $4.2 billion. Why couldn't that have been Ruka?
Yeah, I mean,
Why couldn't that have been
Pat
Billabong?
made one of the most authentic brands in the game, without a doubt.
$4.2 billion Viore.
Yeah.
So,
and they're eating off the culture that these guys built.
And not even having to spend money really with it. And
now,
so, look, I love, this is my partner. Like, these are guys I love.
The future of fashion is for sure athleisure. People want to be comfortable. And you were an original investor in Viore.
No, I was not. All my friends were.
Got it.
This is another one
got it.
I should have reached the
I've been telling everybody you started Viore, by the way.
No.
Dude, he had the opportunity, too, to invest in Uber.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
That's a whole other story.
I
by
don't
the
even
way.
want to hear about
I
that.
just didn't believe you could fit. Where I grew up, I thought the Cavs guys would kill him. This is a true story.
Yeah, seriously.
They came to me, 25,000, 50,000 is what I would have probably done. That Ryan knows I like these little seeding things. It'd be worth 63 million when I could have sold it.
Yeah, let's get him like a nice.
I
Little
first
Uber
sat down
plaque
with
for his
them.
house.
Bear, true story. I sat down with the originals and I said, let me get something straight. Because this is when this is where my hood grow up comes in. You're going to take an unmarked black car with tinted windows and uninsured driver and put my daughter in that car? And do you think I think that's okay? This is how small-minded I was. No. By the way, think about when you're pitched this.
Yeah.
I got this idea. We're going to get rid of taxi cabs. And then the other part where I grew up, you know who owns the taxi cabs? The mafia. Which, by the way, I was right for that for a while. Because remember how many times they got kicked out of Vegas and Italy and everything in Paris? That was mafia-driven as far as I'm concerned. But God, I'm an idiot. So I listen to everything now. But now I look at it not just on the idea. I look at it the jockey, not just the horse, but the jockey.
Yeah.
I don't want just the idea, the white space, like Stance was white space, what you're doing, white space, Jackson Jewelry, but who's the jockey?
Yeah.
Who's leading that? Yeah. And is that person thinking about the bigger picture? And I think from the athletes that have retired and gone through this, that type of advice is better than advice that I can ever give. And for me, I love every agent in this industry. Like Mark was smart enough. He was a great agent at IMG, Mark Irwin. He was smart enough to call me, not because we're going to breach confidentiality, just be like, hey man, deal is probably good. Yeah, it's good. Let's raise the industry together. You know? And that's only because the brands could afford it. I don't think to this day, look, Ken Block, and we'll get off the subject, when he was running DC Shoes, and as Ryan knows and Twitch knows, he paid Mira, Pastrana lots of money. As he grew, he paid them very well. Everybody during that time thought, oh, Steve and Ken or Pete Fox, whatever. I married Pete Fox. If he hated me that much as an agent, why the hell am I the one marrying him? And Ken Block became my client for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. So that's like, eventually the truth comes out.
Yeah.
Stop believing all this crap and just know that you want to support the industry that supports you. And this goes across football. I mean, we deal with parents all the time in football. It's not just action sports. Oh, yeah.
It's
right?
everything,
We deal with all these kind of things.
Everything.
And what I want to do, and I said to someone, if I don't make as much money, I don't ever want to be Wasserman, CAA, WME, all this sort of stuff. Look, I'm 53. Average man wins. I got 26 years left. I won't ever stop working. But at the end of the day, if I can change the industry, because I do believe, I personally, as well as some others that I've mentored, we manage and represent differently. Mm-hmm. It's not just about the commission. It's not just about the money. It's while you're with me, whether it's rehab, whether it's trauma, whether it's therapy, whether it's financial, whether it's whatever. And too many times have I inherited athletes now, because I'm not the original anymore, like an Adam Sansorilla, where I go, how isn't the agent and the manager? You're the chief of staff. Why isn't the accountant reporting to you? Why isn't his accountant reports to me? His financial advisor reports to me. I can't touch the money, but that's how we save.
Yeah,
he's had the same person since I met him. He didn't have it before me, and this is true story. The person that his dad and mom, and no fault to them, it's not their business. Him and Carrie Hart are the only two examples. I inherited an accountant for Carrie Hart. My family knows her. She's really great. Stole money, and I caught her. Second one, and the only reason this happened, I was going on a vacation finally, and we do a year-end review every year financially.
Oh, I hated those meetings.
I called Gretchen and Ryan.
Oh, I hated those.
And I said, we're going to do an audit. We're going to do this review. We did it a little bit earlier, got the report, found out his accountant was using his money to go build houses in Costa Rica. We put him in jail. What do we get, 150 bucks a month? We're never going to get that money back. 700 grand?
Yes, 700 grand. But hey.
This is why I use firms, because not one person's going to jail. They're all going to jail.
But you got a predator off the streets with that one too. That was actually crazy. Yeah. That's a whole other story.
So the stories go on and on. So this is why I tell even my younger agents like Beeks, I sit there going all day long. Chase Sexton is a god in Supercross. Chase Sexton is going to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Our job is not just to make him money. Our job is to make sure that he's financially secure the rest of his life. That's on us. That's not on the financial advisor. It's not on the accountant. They don't know this industry.
Yeah.
It's our job to tell them how long this lasts.
Yeah.
And we have to use those stories. He needs to call. He needs to tell all the stories, not just of the wins, of the, hey, man, I wish I knew then. Or I wish I knew then what I know now.
Oh, yeah.
And that's got to be more important, I think.
Well, it's good. It's good to be transparent like that.
Well, that's been my mission.
Like it.
And
yeah.
you know that.
Yeah.
You know that about me over these last, 5, 6 years. I'm really vocal about my mistakes, especially to this young generation that's coming up in skateboarding and action sports and music. Yeah. What mine and Twitch careers have led us to is not just people inside of our sport. We know everybody. We know musicians, artists, actors. There's really not a person we cannot get in touch with.
Oh, we've seen that
on the planet.
I mean, we could see that from the guests on the podcast. Most of the guests are brought by you and Twitch, and and we also see there's no one more transparent, honest than Twitch. Twitch will tell you anything at any time. He could care less. I mean, one thing I want to talk about Twitch, Sheckler, you brought this up. I mean, jumping a bike on ice.
Is that no hander to side saddle?
That's I'd probably say Winter X Games was always the most stressful event ever.
Because your bike doesn't run right.
Bike's slow as hell because the altitude. This is 06.
I love how on the screen they put 2001 finished last. What's messed up?
Steve,
why can't you just leave that up?
Steve, leave that one in the head. Huh?
2001, I was a jackass. I wasn't there to win. You
were there to have fun.
Exactly, and I had all the fun. That's for damn sure. But this is the most stressful event of the year. Like everyone's like, oh, if you crash, it's just snow, right? I'm like, no, it's an ice cube that's as hard as concrete.
That is concrete.
Like it's bad. Like it's gnarly.
It's harder than dirt.
Dude, it hurt. But
did you have to have spikes in the tires too?
Yeah, we had spikes in the tires. And the hardest thing too was the tires probably weighed like 50 pounds each when normally they're only like 10 pounds each, So with all that mass spinning, like it made it hard for sure. Yeah. And the altitude and how cold it is. And you would always have to have like that, like the dye up the ruts because there'd be so many ruts that you couldn't see because with the lighting on the snow, it's like flat. Like you can't see the line. So yeah, this was definitely a fun event, but I never really looked forward to going. I just wanted to go and get it over with. I couldn't wait to leave Aspen every year.
Is this the one Deegan tried the 360 and ended up smoking himself?
I think so.
Yeah. Scary. Yeah. I was at this one too.
No, this was
I don't think so.
This was the last year they had it, but it wasn't meant to be the last year. And they told me if I cussed on TV, I wouldn't be invited back, but I won, so they had to invite me back. And I did cuss on live TV.
Yeah, of course you did.
Yeah, I could never see you listening to the rules. Oh, Twitch following the rules? That sounds about right.
It was funny too, because around that time, like, none of the managers wanted to touch me. Like, they were like, no, that's like, we're not touching this kid. Like, he's a hazard for everyone around him.
How good was it beating one of your good friends, Ronnie Feist?
It's the best. I love beating all my friends. Even practicing in the backyard was a competition. Yeah, you say it's not, but it is. Yeah. Like you're trying to ride better than everyone you're with. Like it's just how it is. That's why we're in the position we're in today is because we have that. Like I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. It's like people tell me, you can't do that all the time, and I'm like, watch me do it better than you. Yep. Like that's just. I think that's all of our mentality. Tell us we can't do something and watch us do it better.
But then also watch how close we are after the fact. Still friends to this day with everybody I competed against and had to mend some relationships with, we've talked about it before. Like you mend these relationships because they don't matter. The friction doesn't matter, but it was so necessary and so needed to get to the level that I needed to be at to beat my friends.
Yeah. Afterwards, it's a mutual respect because they feel the same way about you.
For sure. They don't want you to win.
Yeah, no. I mean, also, both of you guys, and I want to touch on this before we wrap up here. First of all, I want to say, Steve, thank you for coming on. I know you're very busy managing half the world.
Very busy guy over here.
Yeah, very busy. I mean, he sat with us in the Nosebleed Club for the majority of the race.
I was actually very impressed.
I was very impressed.
How do you like Supercross, Bear? Doesn't matter where you sit. That's your first race or no?
My second. I went to 1A1 years ago where I met, I was like hanging out with you guys for a little bit. And then I left.
It?
I can't stay anywhere for more than 10 minutes anyways. So the fact that I stayed the whole time, I thought it was
I couldn't believe it. I thought for sure. I'm like on crutches. I'm like,
the pits are good too, huh?
When's he saying we're leaving?
I'm like, I'm going to go with Bear. Like, we're going to watch the first qualifier races. We'll be at it. I'm like, I told my wife, I'll be home by 7. He looked at me and he's like, we're not leaving, bro. Yeah. This is insane.
And the pits are fun, right?
It was so much fun. Watching what the Lawrence brothers have done with the Lawrence experience, watching Twitch. I want to say something, first of all. Freestyle demos, without a doubt, are the highlight of any action sports event. Without a freestyle demo, I probably wouldn't have showed up. That thing was so incredible what Twitch and his crew put on.
Why don't we set one up out here in the straightaway?
I've been trying to for at least 2 years. He knows that.
It's easy.
I try to do everything every day. But what
he does too,
Twitch did with his crew and the energy they brought to that event, I can't imagine an event without having some sort of freestyle demo. It brought me back to being a kid. The last time I saw you flip a bike, I was like probably 18 at LA at the X Games.
Staples Center.
Yeah, and watching you do it in real life, I'm like, this is what we love about action sports. It's raw, it's real, it's rugged, it's right in your face. And it's like the way him and his boys do it. I mean, he's got his Trump 2024 jersey on,
Rocking.
Jackson and podcast everywhere. He's like, it's him. You know, his crew's there. Then you got Honda's right there. So like Twitch could be here and then Honda could be right here. And those two worlds are for sure not the same. And watching that in real time is like, all right, this is incredible. This reminds me of action sports. This brought me back to like this authentic nostalgia. So Twitch, salute for you, because that was an incredible show.
Thank you.
Then going in with this guy on crutches, I couldn't go more than 2 feet without 15 photos. Ryan Sheckler. I mean, the amount of love he's got. And I was super thoroughly happy to hear how many people came up to me saying, yo, I saw you in Twitch in a Jackson ad. I saw Sheckler in a Jackson ad. And like, that's what we're trying to do too.
Well, I told Barry, he doesn't get outside of his bubble.
Yeah.
And so when you actually go into the world bubble like that, especially in
You're with everyone and know everyone, so
Especially
people
in-
see you everywhere. You know,
South County, this guy's famous.
Yes,
He's
No.
walking around.
I stay
Oh,
in
it's
my
going
little.
beyond South County. I just told you this
this
golfer.
guy's famous.
I stay in my square mile. I stay in my little
no,
square
but you
mile.
don't like. This is again your flowers, the relationships
Yeah.
you build. I mean, I get it because your personality allows this, but I'm going to give you 2 quick examples. Like Nick Martin and Ollie Gordon, 2 guys going into the NFL draft this year, played at Oklahoma, and it's about, again, when you listen to clients. Like I think the reason, and again, God bless Jeff Schwartz, which he's done in Excel, but it came down to us in Excel for Nick Martin. And Nick's having a baby and he's getting a little nervous. Again, the family, we're not a boutique by any means. I mean, we have 50-something employees now and 4 offices and we're growing, but we're not Excel, we're not Wasserman, we're not these things. And it's a different pitch for sure. And we had Nick during NIL because of Ollie. Like he saw what we did with Ollie, which you met Ollie once again on
signed him.
spring break when
He's
you
on
signed
Jackson
him.
and
Yeah,
Sunset.
exactly. So that was spring break when he was going into his senior year in college
Amazing
as a running
athlete.
back, number 1 running back in the nation going in. But Nick was a linebacker, special human being, had an injury, loves music, plays guitar, loves fashion.
Appreciates
So I'm like,
the
hey, Bear,
culture.
will you talk to this guy? Like, at least meet him, whatever. I don't even have to be there anymore. And it's like, the guy just, all Nick talks about, I'm in Arizona in Scottsdale at dinner. He's like, how's Bear? What's Bear up to? Bear and I are talking about like my suit for the draft, whatever else. But long story back to that is, it's that extra mile that you take too, that I take. And I think the industry needs more of that, right? I've had recently, and it actually broke my heart with this one individual where it's like, to me, it's like, and I think you 3 know that if you call me, and even when you've called me since we don't even work together, whatever, the blessing that I've been given is my time is not too valuable for anybody. Is that you got to at least call somebody back or at least help them out, whatever. If you need a favor, if you need a reservation, if you need this, and Ryan knows this, then I'm there for you. And then the same goes that I need that. When I call you, it's right away, no problem. Even in the holiday, you're like, I'm going to Disneyland, but the next day, I'm going with my family. Next day, let's bring this golf kid in. Let's show him the brand. Yeah. My point I'm getting to is that like, to me, it's like, it's sad when someone eventually says like, oh, it's one side. It's never one-sided. It's just, you got to ask. But I think like these brands and like what you're doing as an individual, I just, again, giving you your flowers, but the fact that the brand is expanding, like, again, Nick, he's like, man, I'm getting a suit. I'm going to have a custom suit. And again, you're smart. You understand that that kid's got a story. And again, Excel versus us, Excel's a great agency. I think they're really good at what they did. The differentiation was, and why Nick stayed with us is the CEO, myself, I called him. And I said, Nick, we got you. You got great agents on my team, but I promise you whatever you need. And he's like, you know what? You have. You've texted me every time and you've communicated and you showed me there. And so that's that one story. The second story is the golfer from Ole Miss. I mean, this kid,
Michael Olasso.
yeah,
This kid's incredible.
he's incredible player, incredible, like, but he just loves that. He's got like, you know, he's growing up in the golf industry and he goes to Ole Miss. And all I hear about is bear this, bear that. Like we send one chain.
I took him on a show.
Yeah.
We went to Nobu. We drove around town. He said, I hit the ball real fast. I go, you want to see fast? Hop in the car. I drove this kid around with your 2 agents in the back seat. I think they almost died 3 times.
Yeah.
I drove them so fast. We went on the wrong side of the road. We were swerving, and then I brought it right back. I said, don't tell Steve
Oh, but
about this.
but I think, look, whether he signs with us or not, because like the kid's going to be sought after, right? I think.
he's a generational talent.
He's a generational talent. But once again, from a brand perspective, we don't do that because we're guaranteed to sign the kid.
Oh, I
right?
know, yeah.
We do that because I want to see Ryan succeed, you succeed, Twitch succeed, all these people succeed. But also, I know how authentic and passionate you are about this. And I just know how much. And again, that kid left. And he's just, he doesn't know. I've never even met the kid, by the way, in person.
No way.
Never met the kid in person. And he's like DMing me going, Bear this, bear that. I just want to thank you so much. And I'm like, I didn't really do anything. Bear did it all. Like,
but
it's just so cool to see that kind of environment.
And Steve, I appreciate that. But I think if people watch this, one thing they should take away is like, it's all about connection. And me and Twitch talk about this. Sheckler, for years, I've been talking about this. The way Sheckler goes above and beyond for us. The guy's a world-class talent. Doesn't have to do half the things he does for us. But that is like a reciprocal reaction of what I'm going to give to somebody now. And it's like this chain link. You have come 2-hour drive, spent 2 hours at Nobu, listening to me ramble about a million ideas, put me on a nice little path, a good guideline. Twitch, he'll answer the phone if he's on a tractor. And I think if people watch this, what they need to realize is 2 action sports icons, global superstars. One of the best to ever do it in managing action sports icons. I'm an entrepreneur that owns brands, but the one thing we all have in common is we care. Yeah. And if you care about the people you work with, and it's not transactional, I love that word that you use, you're going to succeed because there's no barrier you can't break down together. If I need support, he's there. If he needs me, I'm there. And it's not about money. That's what people don't get.
Well, think about it. Think about it. I was thinking about this last night when I was reading, you know, by the way, funny, I'm listening because I can't read.
I was going to say, you can read?
I listen.
It's called audiobooks.
I was listening to yeah, exactly. But like when you start geeking out on the Jay Shettys of the world and some of these mentors I really enjoy or even quote, I can read certain books because they're like the little, just like this much on a page. I can read that. But I go back to that point of like, you know, people that victimize themselves and live in that victimized world versus writing their own future chapter. But also, I think in like business, there's no guarantee. Like what I'm blessed to know is that if the family goes out of business, I'm going to be fine. Not only because of what I know, but because I know that I can always manage really great people because I've proven that.
Yep.
And there's no guarantee that Jackson and Santos, let's take this out of the energy after I say it, is going to succeed, but you're going to succeed. Yeah. Because the way you're doing business now, if you continue to do that, you're going to be given way more opportunities. Yeah. And I was saying this the other day, at 53 years old right now, I'm not like a friend of mine, Massimo, who started G4, Original Moss or whatever.
Love him.
I was with him this summer and he's like, Steve, I got a ribbon. He's in his 60s now. I keep forgetting that because he's just so active and young. He's like, I got a ribbon. And I was like, what's the ribbon? He goes, 0 to 25, I grew a family, learned a little bit about business, had a great life, enjoyed life. That gone. 25 to 50, I failed, I succeeded, I got a happy marriage, I'm in love, whatever. And now at this age, and he's in his 60s, so I'm doing it at 53, he goes, the ribbon's this much left. I'm saying yes to everything. If someone needs my help, if I could give back, if I could start another business. I mean, that gentleman's got more money than he knows what to do with, but now he's looking at legacy. How can I help somebody else do this?
You're not always going to be there to give that information or to give that knowledge. Like
so how can they do that? And so like I think for all of us is now sharing that. We're going to be fine. Right? If I lost everything today, I put everything into this company, I lost everything today, I'm going to rebound. We're all going to figure it out.
You figure it out.
We got to stop stressing about the past. We got to stop stressing about the small little things and really just be there for each other, good and bad. I went through something personally really bad. There was 2 individuals that were with me no matter what. And again, my friends I have a lot of acquaintances. You guys see it and we all see it. Yeah. I have a lot of acquaintances. I have a lot of people, I would say friends. And someone was asking me this the other day about a wedding. And I said, can you just make sure you invite the people that are also going to be in your life 15 years from now? 20 years from now, 10 years from now. Don't invite them just because it's a party. But I went through something personally recently that was really hard for me, and Ryan and Corey were there for me. And I believe that Ryan was there because of all the years I was there for him.
100%.
There was no question when I was calling him going, and this is personal, not business, and I was bad place. Yep. I wasn't sleeping. Yep. I was losing weight. I was like stressing, you know, and there's other podcasts that this isn't the one for it, but I've been vocal about pre-ayahuasca, pre-therapy, pre-trauma work. I was suicidal. If Dave hadn't killed himself, I'll be straight up, I probably wouldn't be here. But he was a selfish fucker. And he left his wife and children to me and a lot of other people, our responsibility too, to help them. And why I will do whatever for Lauren. But men have to talk about this stuff more.
You can't always be that tough.
It's crazy. It's like everybody's like, why do you hire so many women? Because I'm like, they're more secure than us. They got no emotional, like they understand how to handle this stuff. A lot of us men, we're so insecure. And the mental side of this is so important that, and I know this is a long-winded podcast, but I really hope all the cool guys start talking about it. And I've seen it in UFC recently and I've seen it in whatever, but like for me to tell you, like for all these years, and maybe the exception of this individual in the room, On the outside, everybody thinks I have it perfect. On the outside, everybody thinks like, oh, everything's great. Rosie, he's always happy, which I am in most cases. I bet I was suicidal, depressed. I was so angry at the things I did to my wife, my ex-wife, who's the best mother of my children. I cheated on her. I did things that my insecurities allowed me to do this. And I was filling a void of my childhood and all this other stuff. Please just get help and ask somebody. And like, you have such a big voice on this podcast. Bring more people in to talk about this, because you know what sucks? I bet it sucks that some people are talking crap about you. And then you just know that those people don't matter and they're not going to be in your life.
Didn't we just talk about this?
We just talked about that, yeah.
I'm done with it. And it took me years to realize it. It took me years at a dinner table, someone talking shit about me. And Ryan knows the story. And then another individual at the table goes, hey, Astephen, pass the ketchup. Guy never met me. Never met me in his life. His wife is so embarrassed she got up and left. Dinner of 35 people. Never met me in my life. And by the way, you must have really not known me because I'm pretty recognizable and you talk shit about me at the table. Now, again, as Ryan knows, the old Steve, and this goes way back, I just would have knocked him out, punched the shit out of him, fucking flipped the table
That's
over.
facts. That's facts.
Now I just look at it as
Every
like,
once in a while, you still have to do that.
yeah. So nowadays,
No matter how nice you are.
yeah. Nowadays, you look at it like, I'm sorry for that person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad for that person.
Yeah.
And that's why I hope the industry, any industry, I hope the brand leaders, the athletes and everything start to mentor the things that really matter, right? Not the money, not the things, but these relationships are so important. And even look, this is on me too. I let relationships go over time, right?
We all do, dude.
And
It's
we
called
all do
life.
that, right?
Shit happens.
But you gotta figure out how you can rebound from that. Maybe there'll be a time where the person reaches out by mistake and you're like, hey man, I miss you. And if they don't reply, that is what it is. Ryan knows I'm dealing with that with an individual right now that I'm like, why? What? I can only send so many messages or a voice text and say, did I do something? I'm sorry. Can we talk about this? If they don't reply, I've done everything I can. I should just move on.
Seriously.
I should just move on.
Same. Like, I've been texting one of my buddies for the last 3 years. I sent him the same text every 3 years. Like, he used to be really close to one of my friends I used to compete with all the time. And I'm like, just looking for a response, like just checking in, seeing how you and the family are, like, because I care about you. But at the same time, like, if you don't want to respond.
Yeah, at least
I'm going to go do my thing. You
So
know?
I just hope you guys talk, because you have a lot of great fighters on here. You have a lot of great athletes on here. And I think the young generation and the young kids need to know it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to cry. My other client, that he and I are going through some stuff, he sent me the nicest text because it was during the holidays and everything else. And I would do this for anybody that is close to me or close to a friend. Unfortunately, I'm an expert in a lot of this therapy shit now and rehabs and trauma centers or whatever else, as Ryan knows. But the nicest thing back was, hey, just so you know, if you now need anything for the rest of your life, I'm here. It's okay to cry with me. It's okay to be emotional with me. It's okay to know that even though I'm rough on the edges, just give me a call and I promise I'll be there.
Yep.
And to me, that's something that can continue to help not only brands grow through loyalty, but like, it's like when Corey reached out for me for you, which we're going to talk. I think he's on his way here.
Corey DePass is a legend, by the way.
Yeah. He's like, Steve, I just need you to sit with Bear, not for the brand stuff, not for the fun stuff. Just sit down and talk about the other side of the business.
Yeah.
And I'm like, of course I will. And I actually have an idea about that. And it's not about money. I don't need to make money for this.
Yeah.
This to me will come back around. And so those are the type of things that I hope. And these two individuals have gone through so much that I hope that you guys continue on this podcast, because you have a lot of young kids listening, and not just talk about the old memories that we talk about and all the wins and all that sort of stuff. But I really for years, and again, I'm blessed now to be at that age where I can't wait to write the book because the stories are crazy. And I can't wait to tell the end. I'm not done writing the book yet, but the majority of that book won't just be entrepreneurial guidelines or things that I did right. It's going to be it's okay to be fucked up.
We all are.
And that's what's important.
Well, you said it, dude, too. And obviously we're trying to wrap this thing up, but just because you have gone through so much personal work to get to the bottom of issues, you've done work to get there. You've done work. I've done work to get there. That doesn't mean these people that we keep reaching out to have done that same work. And so just because I'm getting myself to a position where I'm comfortable,
you keep working on it.
But you do not give up. That's, I think,
work in progress, I say.
I think, dude, and I've said it before, whether you have a substance abuse problem, alcohol problem, whatever it may be. Maybe you're just completely normal, which good for you. Congrats, that's huge. But I know there's something going on. Everybody should do a 12-step program just for their own personal inventory because of what it teaches you. It teaches you to become accountable. It teaches you to make amends. There's amends we've held on to for our whole lives. Not until I got into a program, a 12-step program, did I realize and start making amends that freed up my life.
You know what's unique too is that like just recently too, it's like it had nothing to do with alcohol and drugs. Is there's a 12-step program by definition of this. Actually, you and I were talking about it the other day, and this is your idea. And I've been starting to think about it in my mind and how I carry that over because, again, back to your program, your 12-step program can be different than yours.
For sure.
Yeah. Everybody should have their own, right? But there's no time limit. I hate when like nowadays, and this goes back to like putting Andy and Bruce, putting Ryan, putting like all these people into rehabs or whatever else. It's like 30-day program. I'm like, motherfucker, I've been working on this 16 years.
Yeah, 30 days.
I still got dad and mom issues. Like, and they're both dead.
Yeah.
You know? So to me, it's like, I no longer put a timeline on it. This is Ryan. We were driving out to the desert. He's like, you know what, Steve? I think it was you, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about this.
Yep.
Maybe I was venting maybe because I'm like, why is this person leaving? Why it's not done? And then ongoing. Ryan's like, you know what? I hate how they say 30 days or 60 days. It's like, no, this is the rest of your life. If you're doing something, if you're dealing with trauma, if you're dealing with childhood issues, if you're dealing with adult issues, if you lost your business, your marriage, for the rest of your life, you need to work on that.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's a work in progress. Like I'm
after
done
30
with
days, it doesn't
tattoos.
just
It's
go
the one
away.
more I'm
Well, it's a
getting.
living amends. It's a daily living amends. It doesn't just go away with an apology. It's something you think about and you work to be better daily on that issue. There's some things that I have that I'm making daily amends on.
Yeah.
Just
And
to
I
be
don't mean
better.
to preach because as Ryan knows even recently.
We're not preaching. This is
I-
all.
Yeah, but it's just real life
I
dialogue
say
that
it now
we've
more
gone
than ever.
through.
Do as
Yeah.
I say, not as I do.
It's good dialogue.
That's it.
I mean, it's
That's
needed.
all it is, you know?
The whole thing, like what Sheckler's so adamant about, and Twitch is such a good. I mean, you watch Twitch. If you follow him on Instagram, you'll see he's golfing with his daughter. He's the first one to get out of here to go pick up his kids. He's super great with his wife. Like I invited him to Disneyland. His wife couldn't go. He's like, no, we can't go. Full experience VIP, no wait zone. Like the thing is that as you get older, when you surround yourself with people that have priorities, have discipline in their life, can show the values of, yo, this is what matters to me the most. Like it's not always about the dollars in the business. Those are the people you want around you. But when you surround yourself with a bunch of leeches and people that constantly want to take, they don't want to give back to the well, but they'll constantly drink from the water, then you get left empty. And that's my whole biggest thing too. The people we put on the team, the people we bring around the business. I spend all day long with these people. I'm here 7 days a week. It's got to be people that are going to motivate me to do better, not just here on the podcast, not just here at the business, but when I leave here to make sure we keep the right people around us.
For sure.
So it all starts with your circle. And then that slowly goes into the things Steve was saying. And a lot of people, they're scared to talk about ayahuasca or resetting your mind, resetting your values, resetting the internal and external feelings of how you operate. Everybody's got their own situation.
It's different strokes for different folks. Like everyone deals with stuff different ways, but you just have to find a way to deal with it.
Well, and then trust that that's your thing. Like, you know, I've talked about it on this podcast before, like Jesus Christ. That sometimes can be a really gnarly hot button. Not for me. Like Jesus Christ saved my life.
Yeah.
Found me my wife. And I have 2 kids because I started following Christ and I put him first in my life. But like,
That's yours.
you know, 10 years ago, if I would say that, it would like, who knows? Like it was frowned upon, but
Yeah.
like it wasn't frowned upon. I would have felt a certain way. Now I don't care. This is what is helping me.
I don't care what other people think about me or what I'm into and what I'm not into. And I built my whole career off of that. You've
done a great job.
People are like, hey, you can't do that. I'm like, I'm going to do me. This is who made me who I am today. You either like me or you don't. I don't care.
Yeah, it's the same thing. People always ask me why I don't drink, why I don't do drugs. I'm surrounded by
You don't need to.
the
You're
biggest
wide open.
maniacs.
Yeah, this
I'm
guy-
like,
By the way,
Could you imagine if he did
there's
drink
another
or
reason.
do
There's a
drugs?
safety reason for that for all of us too. Let's just be clear.
it's like it's the same thing, you know.
You
when
would go straight to treatment if
You're-
you started,
you're-
bro.
well, you got to know that about yourself. The first step is knowing your limitations. I think if I drank or did drugs, I'd probably go off a cliff.
You would, period.
So I never wanted to even venture that.
You would have built that cliff and then jump off.
Yeah.
I mean, Twitch built me a bike. It's been broken ever since I got it.
Yeah, I'm like, hey.
So
we'll
is
end
that
it on
wall
that.
that you went
Yeah,
through.
so is that wall. So is that fence in the back. All right, Steve, I want to say we wrap this up. Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, thank you.
You two guys, thank you for another amazing year. This is the first podcast of 2025.
Let's go.
You guys will be seeing a lot more of this on this new podcast page. What we really wanted to do is give you guys an area that you could go to, that you guys could find content specifically on moto, skate, surf, and the worlds that we're trying to give you guys access to. Not to mention soon to be maybe new title, but Behind the Brand show that's dropping every Friday on the main Jackson podcast channel. We also will be launching a bunch of new products. We have this brand new JX1 watch that we just came out with. We have the Chrono. Everybody's got a different face. And like I said, we spent a year working with some of the top athletes designing the most complete menswear watch. It's got a butterfly clasp, scratch-proof sapphire crystal. Everything about this screams luxury, but we wanted to make sure that it was aspirational and attainable at the same time. So it's priced perfectly for you guys. And then our best-selling chains, make sure you guys go on there, completes any fit. It's a nice little statement piece if you want to elevate your confidence to a new level. I'm Bear Degidio, Twitch, Sheckler, Steve Astephen of the family, the agency. You're watching the Jackson Podcast.
Peace.
Peace.